Hello everyone, and welcome to CivilNet. Today our guest is Roxanne Makasdjian, Executive Director of the Genocide Education Project. It's a California-based educational nonprofit organization which assists educators in teaching about genocide and human rights, in particular the Armenian case. And she's here in Yerevan as part of the program's annual professional development trip to Armenia. The teachers who are here participate in a 10-day intensive program at the Armenian Genocide Institute Museum, and then go on to lead their own teacher training workshops in their home regions. Roxanne, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, we did a story about the teachers who are here, their experience in Armenia and at the Genocide Museum. It was really impressive to me. I could see the passion that they had for it and just how dedicated they were to the subject matter and the care that it takes to teach genocide. So with you, I'd like to talk about how difficult an undertaking like this actually is. How is this funded? How do you bring this all together?
Well, thanks. I was so happy to have you meet with our teacher fellows, Paul, and see a little bit about what we do when we bring teachers here. It's been almost 25 years that the Genocide Education Project was established in the United States. And over the course of that time, we have graduated from working initially just with our San Francisco Unified School District to then other school districts and the State Department of Education of California, and then across the country to many different states now that we work with and teachers that we meet. We go to many, 4 or 5 different large teacher conferences throughout the year, and we meet more and more teachers every year. We give them workshops. We offer them our lesson plans that we've created. And so over the course of that time, we've gained the experience and the expertise and the network in order to finally carry out the Gen Ed Teacher Fellowship Program. We're now on our 3rd year, and it's been going more successful than we could have ever imagined. So the program, as you wrote in your piece, is a year-long program for teachers. We select 15 teachers from across the United States. These are social studies and English language arts teachers. And we prepare them over the course of several months before coming to their first phase of the program, Teacher Fellowship Program in Armenia. It's a 10-day program where they get a very in-depth education, not just about genocide and how to teach about genocide, the Armenian case in particular, other cases of genocide and how to make that comparative look for students, but also who are the Armenians and what is Armenia and what is our identity and what is Armenia today like? How has it been affected by this long history? And what is it doing now? What are its conditions now? What is its progress? What are its challenges? The teachers really get a full view, and they're able to take that back to their schools, to their school districts, to their states. And their requirement over the course of the next following year, school year after this teacher fellowship program in Armenia, is that they train 20 other teachers about how to teach this subject.
And that's a huge undertaking, it sounds like, just bringing so many people here alone. Do you have a funding base? Do you have supporters that help make this happen? Or?
Yes. Yes, you're right. It is a huge undertaking. And of course, as I said, it took us a while to get to the point where we could actually pull it off. We are so grateful to our individual donors and educational philanthropic organizations that share with us this mission. The mission is to make sure in the United States, our next leaders, our global leaders and our American leaders are equipped with this history, this truth about who are the Armenians, who are their constituents, Armenian Americans, and what is this history and what are the conditions that Armenia is in today. With this truth, they can make smarter, more informed decisions about their own personal actions as global citizens, but also when they become leaders, what actions are they going to take?
And I can tell you, we all know, I think, for years there was great resistance to teaching the Armenian genocide in schools, mainly due to Turkish pressure. I mean, I know this personally, both because I went to public school and did not learn anything about it. I was the lone Armenian that people would kind of look at, and sometimes I'd try and fill things in. That was actually all of our dedication, every single, diasporan Armenian. It was like our job that when we had the chance to write a report on something, it was the Armenian genocide. You had to do that because no one else was doing the education, unfortunately. And also in my home state of Pennsylvania, and I remember specifically in 2014, there was a genocide education bill that came before the State House, which got killed by lobbyists on behalf of Turkish interests, and it was not passed until the Armenian case was removed. So how have you navigated this very politically charged atmosphere of education, and has the situation changed at all with President Biden's recognition of the genocide?
Well, first let me say thank you, congratulations, Paul, that as an adolescent you stood up and said, I'm going to write about, or I'm going to help my teachers teach about this topic. Let's remember now, we have a whole nother generation of Armenian Americans in the United States now going to public schools or private schools that may not be Armenian. And they might not be as equipped at home now, 4 generations removed from the Armenian genocide, to be able to actually do an appropriate job helping their teachers with this. But regardless of that, we shouldn't be counting on them anyway to do this work. They deserve this education just as much as the American students who they're sitting next to. We have a responsibility that our Armenian American students who are in those schools also get an appropriate education. It is reprehensible to be in a world history class learning about World War I in 10th grade and not hear one word about the most significant human rights crisis that happened during World War I, and all of the continuing damage that the denial campaign has done up until today, and the empowerment that has given to the deniers to continue their actions. So this is part and parcel of a correct, appropriate history education. It's not something that we are trying to force in somewhere that doesn't have its place. It has its rightful place. And yes, it's beginning to be recognized more and more in the United States. Over the past, I'd say 5 or 6 years, maybe a little longer, there's been a movement across the United States to institute legislation mandating Holocaust and genocide education. When possible, Armenians in those states have stood up and defended the case for including the Armenian genocide explicitly in those laws. There have been successes there: Massachusetts, California, Michigan, several other states, and states that maybe have not passed a mandate, but there has been a directive to the State Department of Education to mention the Armenian genocide in its curriculum as an option to teach about when it comes to human rights and genocide. So those changes have been taking place, and we have been seeing an inclination by school districts and schools to allow teachers to teach an elective course on genocide. And numerous of our teacher fellows who we've brought here to Armenia actually teach such courses, have developed such courses, either a semester-long elective or a year-long elective on genocide, during which they can spend several weeks, if not more, just on the Armenian case. So there has been a shift with President Biden's recognition, but also very importantly, the Congress having passed almost unanimously resolution about the Armenian genocide, but also including a sentence encouraging education on the Armenian Genocide. And now we're actually hoping for the passage of a resolution that's on the table now in Congress that actually appropriates funding for Armenian Genocide education. And we hope that happens.
It's very interesting, and it actually reminds me of something that your fellows for almost completely are not Armenian, in case that wasn't clear to everyone. These are Americans coming here that really, really want to learn about this subject. And they were saying to Armenians like me, you've carried this burden for so many years. We were those kids in school having to do the report because nobody else was doing it. They said, we're ready. We Americans want to take that burden away from you and to assist you with it. And just sometimes it's a matter of just not knowing. And so what you're doing is helping them know. Yes. But I will say, with so many atrocities unfortunately going on today, how do you make the Armenian example from a century ago relevant to these American teachers who are already so overwhelmed with their teaching loads?
Well, unfortunately, we take advantage of the case that the Armenian Genocide was kind of a model for modern history genocides. And so you can look at the Armenian case and then point to things happening around the world, even in Armenia and Artsakh, that it connects to. There's a very close connection with the Holocaust, which is the most taught genocide in the United States. There are very strong connections between the two. And of course, the Armenian case happened before that. So it's a very instructive model to use for teachers. And when we started this program in 2004 in San Francisco, we recognized that teachers are overloaded. Then they're constantly being given new things to teach about, mandated or non-mandated. So we worked for a full year with our school district teachers to create a curriculum on the Armenian Genocide, to create lesson plans, and to create them in a very flexible way, but to create them in a way that fits seamlessly into the standardized curriculum of California. California is the most developed in this area as far as the standards and framework that the state has set aside for this subject. So making our curriculum, making our lesson plans effective and seamlessly fit into what teachers are already supposed to be teaching about in social studies in California also allows it to be taught in all other states just as well. Since California is kind of the most specific about it, then those lessons that we've created actually work quite well in other states. And we've worked with state departments of education to actually create curriculum that's specific to their state. Create a curriculum for Rhode Island based on Rhode Island Armenian Genocide survivors. We've done the same for Michigan and Texas. When we do workshops for those teachers there, we make sure we're bringing in examples of the connection of the Armenian case and Armenian Americans to that state.
Thank you. And finally, just wondering, are you able to track the outcomes of these fellows that come through? What do the teachers actually end up teaching, and do they share their teaching materials with others?
Yes, we do share the outcomes. In fact, we share our connection with them now for the third year. We're still sharing and communicating on a regular basis with even the teachers, teacher fellows who came through in 2022, the first time we did this program. Yes, we track those results in a very personal one-on-one manner with these teacher fellows. We have now 15 teachers for each of the years, right? 2022, 2023, and now 2024. They are covering 32 US states. And they are somewhat our ambassadors for this kind of education in those states. And as I mentioned earlier, their requirement is that they train other teachers. So we are working with them every step of the way. We have regular meetings with them to go to discuss with them and brainstorm with them and consult with them and give them guidance about how they're going to be doing these trainings and what they're going to use in the classroom. Teachers like to accommodate and adapt lesson plans for their own classroom. So we've created a forum for these teachers within our Gen Ed services so that they can all share their information and that we can review what they're working on and consult with them and steer them to maybe more accurate information sometimes when they're not clear, or just sharing the great work that they've done with other teachers. We created a new organization, somewhat, volunteer membership for our previous 2 years teacher fellows. It's called the Gen Ed Varbeds, because now they're Varbeds, they're experts in this work, and they have volunteered to work with us, but with our compensation as well for that work when they take it up. Monetary compensation, of course. We don't want them to completely do this job for free forever, but they continue to teach about this, and they continue to help us with updating our lesson plans or giving sessions at conferences in their states and things like that. And now we made a calculation that there is such exponential growth of this program that if we are able to raise funding, which is still a challenge, even with those donors that believe in this mission, we want to expand further. We want to expand our partnerships with the Armenian Genocide Museum and Institute, which has been a great host for this work. The whole week, teachers spend the mornings there in discussions, lectures, looking carefully at the exhibit. Also, we spend a full day at AUA with the faculty of their Human Rights and Genocide program, and also with experts who talk to them about Armenia today and progress in Armenia today, economic, political, educational, so teachers get that well-rounded view. So now our calculation is up, if we can continue this project and have the funding to do so, by year 7 to 8, we will reach 1 million students.
Wow.
Because if you calculate, each teacher fellow teaches 100 students a year, right? Because they teach maybe 4 or 5 social studies classes during a day. And then each one of those teacher fellows is also training 20 other teachers, and each of those teachers are teaching 100 students a year. And all of these teachers will continue teaching this throughout their careers. So that ends up reaching 1 million new students by year 7 of this program. We're on year 3. Hopefully we can go further.
That is amazing exponential growth and really excitement for the future, and hope that the children of the future will not have to be like me and when it comes to learning about the Armenian Genocide. So Roxanne, thank you so much for what you do, and thank you for joining us here on CivilNet.